Diddy was convicted under the Mann Act. Now, if you don't know what the Mann Act is, the Mann Act was an act created in 1910. It was initially called the White Slave Traffic Act. This is super interesting, right? It was called, again, the White Slave Traffic Act of 1910. And it was part of this thing called white slavery. There's long been a concern, there's long been an idea, there's long been an idea, and I don't want to get into the weeds too much of it, but there's this thing called white slavery. It's a term that emerged in the mid 1900s to talk about the slavery or the enslavement of Christians throughout certain parts of the Ottoman Empire, etc. And it became used in the United States and in Europe as well to talk about sex slavery and forced prostitution, especially in Chicago and other parts of the Midwest. So this idea of white slavery is a relatively old but distinctly American thing. And the idea of the Mann Act, which was again was initially referring to the White Slave Traffic Act of 1910, was basically to protect white women from sex trafficking. And to call it white slavery is super fascinating, right? Because to call it white slavery is to presume that slavery by definition is for blacks, it's for browns, it's for anybody who's non-white. So slavery in and of itself ain't meant for white people. Slavery is no proper place, no proper experience for white people. And so that was the Mann Act. And so that.
Welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. I'm your host, and we are back, Stacy Brown.
Welcome back, Stacy. Peace and love, everyone. I'm Niele Anderson, your co-pilot, and we have tons of headlines to jump in today. We have an update on the Flint water crisis. We'll tell you why Black people are suing Walmart, and of course, the Diddy trial, or the Diddy verdict, shall I say, Stacy.
Yep. And so we have the verdicts are in, as you all know by now. Count one, not guilty of racketeering conspiracy, which made it interesting because the day before yesterday, the jury, well, when they first got the deliberations, they started deliberating on count one, which is racketeering, and the jury came back and told the judge, we have a problem with juror number 25, one of the jurors on the case, who's not following instructions. And you got the sense that this juror was going to be a holdout. Well, there was a holdout Wednesday or Tuesday night going into yesterday on count one. They had reached a consensus on counts 2, 3, 4, and 5. But count one, they said they was hopelessly, basically deadlocked. And the judge sent them home and said, come back in the morning and deliberate some more. Well, within an hour, they had a verdict on count one, which I thought was very interesting and very troublesome for Sean Diddy Combs. Well, it turns out that he got, other than a full acquittal, he got the best that he could have hoped for. Not guilty on racketeering, which meant that he could have spent life in prison. Not guilty of count 2, sex trafficking of Cassie Ventura. But he was guilty of the Mann Act, as we know, as it pertains to Cassie and, of course, Jane. And the judge decided on no bail. So that's where things stand with Diddy. The judge said he can't go home, and prosecutors are asking for as much as 5 to 10 year sentence. The defense has asked for a 2-year sentence. So we will see how the judge will decide. The case is scheduled to be, well, Diddy's scheduled to be sentenced on October 3rd.
Yeah, I hope during that time, I know that we're at odds with him not being released on bail yesterday. I was actually hoping that he would be released, but I thought because it's at the judge's discretion, he did have a good point. of, just wanting to see a better behavior pattern coming out of Diddy, since his attorneys based his case on, yeah, you're going to see a violent person. Yes, he's a violent person. Yes, he's this and that. They kind of based their opening statements, their closing statements, and used it throughout the case. And so the judge was able to throw that back in their face to say, hey, so I'm just hoping that Diddy, takes that information. Maybe he takes him some classes over the summer. Maybe he has a therapist come see him once a week, so that when he does go to sentencing, that he can show that he took into consideration what the judge said, and that he's able to get the minimum of the sentencing. Because personally, Stacy, I think prostitution should be legal.
Well, I don't think we disagree on whether he should have been released or not. I could care less if he got released, to tell you the truth. I agree with the verdicts. I think that racketeering was a stretch from the beginning. I think they overcharged. They always overcharge black folks, especially if you're rich. I think in Diddy's case, they couldn't get him in the boardroom, so they went in his bedroom and got him. I also believe that the judge is going to give him some jail time. Otherwise, he would. I think he would have let him go yesterday. Whether he should be in prison or not, I think he should have served time. And I don't know what and we do intend to have an attorney on this morning, but I don't know what the sentencing protocol is for domestic violence. Although he was not charged or convicted of domestic violence, I think he should have been serving time for beating Cassie, but nothing more than that. To me, I think the government, I think really, I think Diddy pissed the wrong person off, did something or said something, whether it was Diageo's situation, whether it was someone else, because these are charges. This was clearly a situation where, yeah, you said he has anger problems. I don't disagree with that at all. To beat Cassie or anybody the way we saw depicted on that video.
Or not just that, you have the situation where he blew up the car.
Well, it's allegedly.
You had Kid Cudi.
We gotta go allegedly.
But there were other examples throughout the case of his bullish ways. And so his attorneys never disputed it. They just said that that's not what he was charged with, which were facts.
Well, they did dispute the blowing up the car, and in fact, the prosecutors removed that from the charge. They removed that.
But overall, they did not dispute that he had bullish ways, and there were other examples within the case that they didn't dispute. They used that as their talking point, but referred to that as that's not what he's charged with, which I think we all agree on. But because it was entered into the case, the judge was able to use that as a way to keep him in until he makes his final judgment on sentencing. I see David Youngblood told us, I told you, Stacy and Niele, I did not see a RICO conviction. I don't think any of us did.
Again, I do think this board. Remember when this first happened, we also had somebody from Abercrombie and Fish with the same exact charges, who has not and will not probably see a moment in jail. Diddy's been in there 9 months. Diddy's been denied bail 1 million times and offering his firstborn for bail. Obviously, we won't go down that road because there's no need to. We know there's a huge difference in black and white justice when it comes to black and white folks. But this was a whole, when we talk about waste and abuse, waste, fraud, and abuse, this is whole waste. This whole trial was a waste of taxpayers' money. The Southern District of New York is famous for wasting taxpayers' money, and they did it again here. They should never have brought racketeering charges against this man. Domestic violence, like you said, his attorneys kept saying, you will see that, yes, he's guilty of domestic violence, but he's not charged with this. Domestic violence was really the central thing. The women who testified, each testified that to some extent, They enjoyed the hotel nights. They enjoy. In fact,
Right,
I think
right.
one of them testified that they went off and did it with somebody else, unrelated to Diddy.
Right, right. I mean, it was very messy, but let's bring in our guest, attorney Jason L. Keith. He's a national civil and criminal attorney and legal analyst. You've seen him on all the news channels, and now he's here with us on Let It Be Known. Good morning, attorney Keith.
Good morning to you. How you doing, Miss Anderson?
We are well. And let's just start off with the question. When it comes to the attorneys and the prosecution, who won?
Oh, definitely Diddy's defense team. Absolutely. It's just not even, it's a landslide. Diddy went in and he beat the feds. That's one of the things federal prosecutors take pride in. You know, federal cases generally have over a 95% conviction rate. And to go in and to beat a RICO case, it did a lot of things, and it made Diddy in so many ways and so many aspects a legend to people on the streets that are fighting federal criminal prosecutions.
Attorney Keith, one of our viewers is saying what I've been saying since this verdicts came in. So now, if you fly a young lady or a young man out, or old lady or an old man for that matter, and you have intercourse, you can be charged like Diddy.
Absolutely. And I mean, the reality of it is what we observed is $1 billion prosecution for what would be the equivalent of a state misdemeanor prosecution charge, prostitution charge. The reality of it is, I mean, that these laws, they're flexible in the way they're designed. If you pay somebody for sex, whether they're local or whether you fly them in, if you're flying from out of states, federal means it's affecting two different states. Interstate means this has to be in the state you are. So absolutely, you fly somebody in, you pay them for sex, it could be a federal prosecution. If you do it locally, it could be a state prosecution. But on the state level, it's generally a class 2 or class 1 misdemeanor, and you generally get court costs and fines and traditionally some form of probation.
So to be clear, if if my wife comes to, I'm in New Mexico and she comes to, I bring her out to New Mexico and we have sex and I give her $500 and a credit card to go shopping. Am I in trouble?
No, that's your wife. I mean, you're allowed to pay. I mean, in the eyes of law, your wife, y'all are considered one. So you're just giving money to
Okay.
yourself in the eyes of law.
Okay, if
But
it's a girlfriend.
I mean, it could be argued if the sole purpose of her being flown in was to solicit and to pay for sex. It could be argued. It's a case by case basis. It's no different in any other of these laws that are discretionary. If you're doing 55, 57 to 55, you could get a ticket. It's just not generally
Right.
prosecuted. But yes, you could. But the reality of it is, I don't want that prosecution to strike fear into your viewers. The reality of it is that Diddy signed up for a lot of these things with his arrogance, with his boastfulness, and with the fact that Diddy did a lot of things that are not very generous and very nice when it comes to females.
Right. I want to
And
get your take. I want to get your take. Yesterday, after the verdict was read, Diddy and his attorneys requested bail. They came back to court in the evening, and the judge decided, based upon some of the things that you just noted, that he didn't feel safe letting Diddy out, and he wanted to keep him in until he decided to do sentencing. What are your thoughts on the judge's ruling on that? And do you think that it was justified?
yeah, well, I think Diddy should go home. And I know it has been very unpopular to a lot of our female supporters, and it's not an attack or support for Diddy's behavior. Um, my perspective is a little bit different. I am an advocate for the law. I think Diddy should have went home. However, given Diddy his past with this the show making them band and making kids go get him cheesecakes across the
Yeah.
state and him going on TV saying he's the man and he's great and that judge sitting there and seeing all of the things that Diddy has done, but the problem with is a lot of that stuff was state stuff and it was stuff that
Mm,
the statute had ran on, so they couldn't prosecute it. The things that he were being tried for were things that Rico were that was a stretch. I mean, you got to understand if you get a Rico conviction on, everybody's afraid at that point in time. If I got a business and I'm having a extravagant sex life and the money kind of funnels between the two, that could have been a RICO. So with that being the case, I think the judge wanted us to know that he's not going to condone Diddy's behavior. I mean, people were in the parking lot putting baby oil, celebrating.
Oh gosh,
This
yeah.
is the modern day O.J. Simpson for a lot of people, um, the modern day Rodney King trial. And so the judge wanted to be known. Well, he got a conviction, and I think the judge is going to give him as much time as he can give him, due to the
Hmm.
fact of a lot of things that was testified that Diddy cannot be prosecuted for, but he actually, in fact, got away with it.
Mm.
And Attorney Keith, Neil and I had this spirited discussion beforehand on the judge's discretion. Now, can you explain that? My thinking on it, I'll just tell you this, is that discretion within what he was convicted of. But can you explain that? I mean, I could be totally wrong.
All right. Well, when you talk about the judge's discretion, that is not all the way true. He's under the Federal Sentencing Act. So what generally happens is Diddy has been charged with, I don't know the class of felony, but it's a federal offense. They have a sentencing grid. I can tell you that the judge has to give him to be within the guideline ranges. So the judges can depart, they can go up or they can go down based on certain factors. I will tell you, based off Diddy's prior record level, being that he has no prior history, the judge has to give him generally 21 to 27 months per charge. He can put them all together. He could just serve one sentence, 21 to 27 months. Well, he can box call them, run them at the expiration. So 21 to 27 plus 21 to 27. Because it's federal court, they always continue sentencing to another day. And the attorneys come in and actually have a trial about whether Diddy should get less time or more time. And there are cases that say that, hey, a person should not automatically be sentenced to a certain range just by virtue of the crime. We need to take certain factors into consideration: his history, his fatherhood, his contributions to the community. All these things are things that his lawyers that are getting paid all this money are going to do, are going to go in there and sell the judge as to, hey, Diddy should get, and it's possible, judge, you should be able, and the judge can give him probation. But the
Right.
prosecutor's going to do the same thing. They're going to say, hey, this is a bad guy that got away with a lot of stuff. Did you see the way he beat up Cassie? Did you see the way he did this? He blew up somebody's car. He has people peeing in him out. All of these things. Judge, this man needs to be taught a lesson. If it's not for him, it's to let other people know that these crimes are not acceptable and you're not going to get away with it. And he was really actually in a position where he got away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that was my point. So if you were Diddy's attorney, some of the things that I think, based upon the judge's ruling yesterday, I know for me, I would advise him to get in some of those classes, those anger management classes, get you a therapist once a week, to show when your sentencing happens that you are not the man that you were when you came in. What were some of what would be some of the things that you would advise Diddy to do in between this time between now and October?
Uh, Being honest with you, I would get Diddy ready for what's about to happen.
Mm,
I mean, Diddy can do all of those things. And I think as a practical civil or criminal defense attorney, you will prepare your client by doing those things. Hey, while you in there, I want you taking these anger management classes. I want you in therapy. I want you to um, come up with some type of a way to speak on behalf and against domestic violence and those advocates. But the harsh reality of it is this: this is a show.
mm,
There are arguments that that federal prosecutor prosecuted those charges due to the popularity of the case. Just imagine had they have gotten a conviction, the amount of support and promotions and other things that would have happened. This is a show. Everybody's watching, and the judge knows that. I mean, the news cameras, it's a melee at the courthouse. I mean, everybody's watching. That judge is going to be firm and he's going to be hard and he's going to do what he feels best, regardless of what we walk in that courtroom and do. Diddy has to recognize that at this point, he's not looking at life in prison like he was before. He's not looking at a life sentence. He's not looking at a mandatory 15 years. He can get probation, or more likely than not, he's going to get 51 months. He's done 10 of those months. So Diddy's looking for 3.5. And at the end of the 6 months, when he gets down to 6 months, he can do that at a federal halfway house. So Diddy might have to sit down maybe for another 2 years, give or
mm.
take. And with his money and his resources, they could probably find a very comfortable federal prison to send him to that would not be as hostile as the place that he's being housed.
Attorney Keith, let me ask you. Let me switch it a little bit. put you in Cassie's team for a second. Um, Cassie got $20 million. We learned from Diddy, $10 million from the hotel. She got $30 million. Why? Why would you have your client, Cassie Ventura, involved in this trial? Why would she go? She didn't have to go and testify. She didn't have to cooperate with this, because at the end of the day, she's the one who's looking kind of shady to people. She's the one who exposed her bedroom life to people. Why would you have her testify in this case?
I think that I wouldn't have her testify. I think Cassie's decision to testify is her decision. I think Cassie knew, given the nature of the testimony that was going to come out, those prosecutors prepped her. They've already gone through these testimonies. They help her to, create details in her testimony one way or the other. Cassie knew what she was getting into. This was something that was at the core of everything that she did. She wanted to do that. She wanted to testify. And I think, given the nature of everything that took place, I think you have to support that, and you have to stand firm. You have to stand by her. And she also represents something much bigger than herself at this point. Cassie is the face of domestic violence. I mean, she's gotten that. Like, when you think of domestic violence, you think of Cassie at this point in time. The only problem is there was no accountability for Diddy in terms of criminal prosecution because it took so long, and she got boxed. There was a payout. So there are limitations and restrictions in terms of criminal prosecutions that I'm pretty sure have been contracted in that settlement agreement between the two attorneys that were representing the parties. It makes sense. You will not get on the stand and prosecute and put my client in jail if he gives you $30 million. It just makes sense.
Right.
So,
I,
I think the answer to that is Cassie wanted to testify, and you have to support that. And Cassie is going to be for a long time the face of domestic violence, in the face of public accountability when it comes to holding people accountable for abuse and acts against females.
Yeah, I find that problematic because there is a level of accountability that she has still not taken. But I have a question about the prostitution. It was revealed during the trial that Cassie and Jane Doe, they chose with Diddy who they were going to have this freak off with. They were the ones that paid the money. So my question is, why weren't they charged as well? Even with the trafficking and the RICO, when they say you have RICO, it's organized crime. But it seems like Diddy was the only one charged. Why weren't they charged with these crimes since they were involved with them, with him as well?
Ms. Anderson, that's the easy answer. It's a prosecution, and they were actually working with the federal government. We cut deals. That's what we do. When your client's in a situation, sometimes I'll give somebody bigger up if you don't go as hard on my client. And that's what the clients are expected to do. Cassie, in exchange for her testimony, was not to be prosecuted. And that
Okay.
was probably another reason to add to your question. They probably, and I find it hard to believe given the nature of it, but it's very probable that they said, "Hey, Cassie, if you don't assist us in prosecute this case, we're going to prosecute you as well."
Okay.
And because we do have evidence that you committed a crime, and so I can't speak to actually whether that happened or not. I don't think that would go over really well because I think Cassie could go public and there would be a lot of people to support her. But absolutely, they cut deals. The lawyers say, "Hey, if my client gets on the stand, she needs immunity. You can't prosecute her, and she needs protections, and all of the above. She needs escorts. She needs places to stay. She needs to make sure gets to see her family. She has private planes, all above, and these things are coordinated. That's why this is a $1 billion trial."
Wow. Some people argue too along those lines that Cassie took the money. She should have went away. I'm always reminded of a woman named Janet Jackson, not the singer. A woman named Janet Jackson who said on one trial about one big time superstar, when it came to allegations, "I will never take the devil's money," and offered her settlements, offered her this and that, trips to Brazil. Is that she said, "No, I'm going through with prosecution." People say, why didn't Cassie just say, "I just want to prosecute him"? Either or, take the money and walk away, or prosecute him and walk away.
Right. We're running out of time. I have a provocative question. Just want to get your thoughts. The term prostitution, it's been debated. It should be legal. It should not be legal. In this day and time, Attorney Keith, do you think that prostitution should be legal?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you have two people that want to participate in the act, and one's willing to pay them for that, and the other person's willing to receive, and I think everything we do in our life, there's a transaction. You go to the grocery store, you pay for goods, they give you services. You go to the barber shop, you go to the hair salon. I think if two people want to get paid for their services, they should be able to do so. The only problem is it would never be legalized because they don't have a way to tax it. And as you
Mm.
know, in our administration, in our
Yep.
society, you have to find a way to tax things in order for it to make it relevant, in order for it to make sense. And it don't make sense because they know people aren't going to pay taxes on prostitution. Most people
They
don't even
found
want to know that it's happening.
they found a way to remember the numbers and all that. They found a way to make that lottery and lotto and all that stuff. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we'd love to have you back when it's when it's sentencing time.
Okay, no problem. I'll be glad. And thank you for having me. Y'all have an amazing day. I love your show.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Peace and love.
Attorney Keith. Well, I think that he was Attorney Keith really set the record straight here in a lot of ways. I know you disagreed with him on the Cassie thing a little bit, but I think as far as the legal stuff, it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Wow. So, folks, Cassie and Diddy aren't the only things going on, as you well know. So much is going on. Donald Trump's sweeping big ugly bill, as Niele has named it. Now, Niele, everybody's picking up on big ugly bill now.
But I've added something. Yesterday, we had California State Senator Lola Smallwood Cuevas, and they call it Capitol here in California. They're calling it the BS bill. So now
BS
it's the
bill.
big ugly bullshit bill.
Oh, okay. Well, here we go. Well, not only is it is going to remove healthcare from 16, 17 million Americans over the next decade, they are also doing they are growing the money that they're going to give to ICE, something in the neighborhood from 4 billion that they already have in their budget to something like 30 something billion. This guy, folks, we're on our way to nothing less than a police state. But so healthcare losses in places like Florida, 2.3 million people are expected to lose healthcare. 2 million. These are 2 million in Texas. These are Republican strongholds, by the way, folks. 2 million in California, almost 1 million in New York, 750,000 people in Georgia, and more than a dozen states. Uninsured rates will rise by at least 5 percentage points, which reverses a decade or more since Obama of gains in health coverage. Medicaid, which covers more than 78 million children, seniors, and adults, would face, of course, the deepest of cuts. Folks, this is untenable. Why would anybody who claim to want your vote, who claim to represent their constituents, why would they even consider this, Niele?
You know, it's crazy, but I think I have somebody who can help us understand the detriment of this big ugly bill. She's a member of the Black Legislative Leaders Network. She's also the Tennessee House Minority Leader. Welcome, the Honorable Karen D. Camper from Tennessee. Good morning.
Tennessee.
Now we can hear you. Good morning.
Oh, I said good morning. How are you?
Yeah, we are good. You know, yesterday we had California State Senator Lola Smallwood Cuevas on to discuss how California is resisting, so to say. And so talk to us about how Tennessee is or what Tennessee is doing as it relates to this big ugly bill and the impact it will have on, let's just say, your constituents.
Well, thank you all for having me. Thank you, and I appreciate being here to talk about that. One of the things that happened with Obamacare, I'm going to go back to the Affordable Care Act. It really opened the door for hundreds of thousands of people to get access to health care. And the Republican supermajority here have continued to try to chip away at those advantages that people were having. We did not lives. We've closed more than 14 more hospitals and went to a system of a block grant, which has hurt people and have not expanded Medicaid to more constituents. With this bill, they're trying to do even more damage to people's health, limit more access to people's health. With the block grant that we have, it has created an opportunity for Medicaid savings, but those savings are not being sent back to the people in terms of expanding and getting more people access. This bill is going to do even more dangerous things to that process. So I'm really concerned about, the language of this bill and the power that it might give to state legislatures to act, because the mindset here is going to be even more dangerous for our constituents here.
Yeah, and again, I asked the question, Representative Camper.
I think we could
You
hospital.
okay? Okay, I think we're on some sort of delay. Unfortunately, Representative Camper out in Tennessee. Representative Camper, I asked the question on how does one go to bed at night? How do you sleep facing your constituents, knowing that you have basically put their lives in jeopardy?
One of the things that the Republicans do is give their constituents this perception that it's not you, it's them. So they've bought into this mindset that other people are going to, have advantage over you and taking things away from you. So they believe the hype, to be honest with you. And so they've bought into this idea that somebody else is going to get something that they don't think you deserve. And we've got to push back on that, because this is everybody's tax dollar.
Right.
This is every citizen in the state of Tennessee and in this country who funds government and want access to things that we feel our constituents deserve. However, the Republican supermajority, at least in Tennessee, have created an atmosphere where the people here think that you're going to get something that you don't deserve, and they're willing to, have.
Yeah, I think we're having a bad connection. Before we let you go, and we're gonna have you back on because what you're saying is very important. But the Black Legislative Leaders Network put out a blast yesterday. What is your call to action as leaders of state, and how certain things you guys can do in resistance to a federal government that is basically rolling back everything from civil rights, voting rights, any type LGBT, queer rights, everything? What is the response or the call to action from the Black Legislative Leaders Network?
Well, something that Reverend Sharpton taught us was we were put here to legislate and empower advocates to advocate, activists to do their role and be there for them. Give them the ammunition that they need to fight, and we have their backs and they have our backs. So we've created an atmosphere here that we are trying to empower people with the level of understanding so that they can fight for what we believe in. Secondly, with respect to legislators, the Black Legislative Leaders Network is a network of Blacks in leadership across this country. And all of us have relationships with people at the federal level, our own representatives, our own senators, and those on the other side of the aisle. And so what we're saying is Black people are going to be hurt with respect to this bill then we need to come together for Black people in this country and say something about it and do something about it. Talk to those legislators. Talk to my congressman, who I know supports this, what we're doing. But talk to those on the other side, because your people will be affected by this. Have the courage you need to make a difference. Have the courage to stand up and say this is not right. So we're asking members of the network to call all of their federal representatives and senators to ask them to vote against this bill. But at the same time, we're sending out information and knowledge to our constituents and activists and advocates to call as well, to ask them to vote against this bill.
All right. Well, Representative Karen Camper, as Niele said, we certainly have to have you back because this is going to be going on. This is so important. We need to hear from leaders like yourself. So thanks for joining the Black Presses. Let it be known.
Right. And don't forget, let it be known, family, that you're welcome.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. And the Black Leadership Network is also a part of what the State of the People is doing with their marathon. And of course, the NAACP, the Urban League, the National Council of Women, the SCLC, they're all asking you to call your members of Congress. We'll get the number up for you. I know it's 202 something. I should know it by heart now, but we're calling our Congress members on from the Senate to the House of Representatives. We know that the bill is currently in the hands of the House of Representatives. So make sure you're calling those individuals. Call the Congressional Black Caucus. Put more pressure on them. Although we know they're doing all that they can. But if at some point we'll get that number up for you to call. And it's 4th of July weekend. As always, as Black folks, we always been patriots, whether they like it or not. Let's do our civic duty and call and let them know that we don't like this bullshit bill. Okay. There it is.
So it's not just ugly, huh?
No, it's not just ugly. It's bullshit too. Let's just call it. If Donald Trump can call President Biden a son of a bitch, and
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and I got so mad yesterday because I watched all of these white men call people illegal aliens. I'm like, we've changed it to undocumented immigrants. So if they're going to call people illegal aliens, then I'm going to start calling them crackers and peckerwoods. How about that?
Oh,
you want to go tit for tat? You want to call people illegal aliens? Then guess what? You're a peckerwood and a cracker.
Nancy Wall says the phone number sends to a voicemail that's full. That might be a good thing, right?
That's a good thing, but then let's take the step further. And there's a website to where it's a listing of all of the elected officials. It's public record because they work for us. The Senate and the House of Representatives has the page. Hopefully Greer can pull it up. And so we can give it to you. And it has the listing of all of the members of Congress, all of their office telephone numbers. So if the switchboard is not available, call their offices direct. They have a duty to answer those phones. Okay?
MB is asking that we put the number back up. So let's see if we can put that number back up. There it is. 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121.
Yeah, and like I say, you can always Google your Congress members, from your senator and your House of Representative. You can Google their names and their office numbers. You can call them at the Capitol in DC, or you can call their field offices. Their field offices are, which is what sits in your city and town. They have field offices there. The numbers are available on their websites, and you can call the Capitol. So if you can't get them at the Capitol, call their field offices. Their field deputies, their chief of staff, they're all in their districts.
And Representative Camper just sent a note. BLLN has partnered with the State of the People to hold hearings to hear from constituents.
See, I love it. Good. I mean, you see, this thing is like grassroots. It's growing. So we'll definitely, Representative Camper, we would love to work with all of your members, get them on from state to state, and we can do this thing ourselves. Okay.
I like also, Neil, perhaps you can respond to this. I like what RNG puts there because we see it, we saw it, and we see it now too. But he says it will take a year or two for the cuts to take place. The Dems should be in charge of the House by then, and the GOP will blame the Democrats.
For sure. And that's if we have an election. We saw what happened in Miami as the litmus test to see they pushed their election back till next year. So that means that the mayor in Miami that's termed out this year, he gets that person gets another year, and anybody else that was on that ballot, they get to remain in their seats. So I'm assuming that's city council. If they vote for commissioners, whoever who would have been on that ballot in November in Miami, they get a whole nother year. And so hopefully we do get to have those elections. But I think with like things that state of the people, then you see state legislators joining in. The more we stay heavily involved, like the Republicans do, the more we have an opportunity to have an election next year. For sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Wow.
We'll see. Right. We have some more headlines to jump into, and we'll go through them really quickly. A federal judge, Stacy, in Pennsylvania, has rejected Donald Trump's attempt to dismiss the Central Park 5 defamation suit. Now, the lawsuit accuses Trump of falsely claiming during the 2020 debate that the 5 exonerated men had pled guilty and killed someone. We know that's a lie. So the ruling allows the lawsuit to move forward towards trial.
Goodness grief. Sometimes you get a little speechless when you hear stupidity. I mean, this is just
a sitting president going to trial for lying.
But here's the thing. When you go into a business, a lot of businesses, and you say that I'm a convicted felon, they immediately say, thanks for coming in. Nice hearing from you. We'll put your name in the file. What in the world was Americans thinking when this guy said, hire me to lead you, hire me to be your CEO? I got 34 felony convictions. A convict is going to do convict things.
Right.
For the most part.
It goes to say, sometimes we can feel the wind of our ancestors. Well, guess what? His ancestors is blowing too. It's like in Do the Right Thing. This week was the anniversary of Do the Right Thing. And when Radio Raheem had the rings, love, hate, they represent hate. We represent love. Okay. We got our ancestors win. They got their ancestors win.
And
so blow, baby, blow on us.
and this dude won again with CBS Paramount on the whole Kamala Harris interview. They're basically paying him $16 million, like ABC. Yeah. It's like ABC did. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Right. Elizabeth Warren, the senator, she's a senator. She wants an investigation because apparently CBS is trying to do a merger with another company. And so the only way they feel that they can get the merger done is to give Trump that 16 million, which he says is going towards his library, but he lies so much.
Right.
Lie, just a liar. But let's move on to some hope. A lot of Democrats aren't happy with this, but this looks like the direction of our country. New York State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, he stopped by Harlem to campaign for Black voters. Now, after winning the Democratic primary in New York, he headed to the headquarters of Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network. Spike Lee and Sharpton were in attendance, but neither of them have yet to endorse Mamdani. But Mamdani understands the power of the Black vote. But a lot of Democrats are not happy with this but it seems like, AOC is polling strong. Okay. And so is he. And so this could be the direction, because a lot of people are thinking about jumping ship from the Democratic Party. There's just no place to go. And so this race right here in New York is going to be interesting to see, because it's going to be a foretelling of the direction of this nation.
Well, I would say this about Al Sharpton, the part of that he played. No, I'm gonna.
Okay.
No, I will say this. I'm not an Al Sharpton fan in any sense, whatever. But you know what? Al Sharpton is holding it down for Al Sharpton for sure. I mean, look.
I thought you was gonna say for Black people.
No, listen. You know good and well. Al is doing business the way Al does business. He's somebody he gonna withhold, his endorsement or whatever. Of course he is. Al knows what he's doing, and we can hate on him, but I kind of wish other so-called Black leaders would follow suit. In a lot of things that this man does, because you know why I say that? I'm gonna be frank about it. When Al walks from the table, Al's not walking from the table empty-handed, whether you like it or not. When Al walks from the you can't tell.
But
me.
it's okay. So when he walks away, let me say this: when he walks away from the table, is he walking away from the table for the people or for himself?
Oh, he's walking away for Al Sharpton Incorporated. Listen,
I didn't say that.
Al may bring something. He may bring something back for the people, but Al bringing something big back for Al. If he bringing 85% back for Al, you cannot tell me that Al has all of a sudden, since the meeting with Target 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, hasn't uttered it. He hasn't even used the word Target. I mean, he could be talking about target practice. He'll use another word instead of Target. You can't tell me that Al did something there in that meeting, and he was satisfied.
Well,
he was satisfied.
Okay. Yeah, capitalism. Dr. Joni is on the other hand talking about Trump, saying he's selling merch for alligator Alcatraz, passing it out to broadcasters. He's also selling cologne. 47, what is it? 45, 47. I think it's like $200 a bottle or something like that. He's selling men and female cologne.
I hear you guys use this phrase, and totally Randy uses it a lot. Playing in my face. Trump is playing in all y'all faces, everybody's faces on a daily. He has turned the White House into a flea market, or as what they say out in LA, they don't call it flea markets. Swap meets. He's turned it into a swap meet. For a little while there, before him and his boyfriend Elon broke up, it was a Tesla showroom. And this guy's selling watches. He's selling cologne. It's like he's doing that whole. He's probably playing CeeLo. Come on, Dice. He's doing everything.
And speaking of that, alligator Alcatraz, I think that might, really bring them down, because that is a disaster waiting to happen. It's already flooding. It's hurricane season. It's hot and humid. Okay. Do they even have air conditioning? If a hurricane hits that, it is going to be a catastrophe, and that blood is going to be on Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump's hand. So you better be careful, because you never know. God, they say God is mysterious. You never know how God is going to work.
Yeah, well, they're not
And
counting
I think
on that.
that's one of, I think that they have made a horrible mistake. They put that up in less than a week. Okay. I think it was 8 days to be exact. Okay. They put it up in 8 days in a place where hurricanes and rain and humidity. I mean, it's a death trap.
It is a death trap, and then they touted how they were. It was already alligators in the water, but they showed how they were bringing more over there and stuff like that. And Trump even joked about the alligators, eating folks or whatever.
And it's already flooding. They showed pictures yesterday. The place is already flooding.
Yeah, and who's gonna? They again, hate blinds you. They hate Black and brown people so bad, they feel like they're the ones who. So what? They're gonna suffer. Well, what about the ICE agents and the others who have to guard them?
And does it have air conditioning? I doubt
No,
it. I didn't see
no,
any
it
air
doesn't.
conditioning
It
units.
doesn't. No, it doesn't have air conditioning.
Hmm.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
You know, they are so inhumane. These people are they're like they shake hands and have dinner with the devil every day.
Yeah. Yeah. May the wrath of God deal with them. I have some better news. It's better. I don't know if it's great, but it's better. So let's head to Michigan, where Flint has finally replaced most lead pipes 10 years after the Michigan water crisis. Now, if you
Oh,
recall,
awesome.
yeah, if you recall in 2014, Flint officials switched the city's water source as a cost-cutting mechanism, but it did not ensure safety from corrosion. Okay. Now, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that the water crisis exposed nearly 100,000 residents of Flint to lead due to the crisis. Now, Flint's Black population makes up approximately 56% of the total population, but we only make up 13% in the state. So they decided to choose this community to put those pipes in, which caused lead, and we saw the crisis. Now, the White House estimates that more than 9 million pipelines still supply homes across this country. Okay. So there's still a crisis happening nationwide. And the EPA has projected that replacing all lead pipes in the country could cost at least 45 billion. And we know that
Okay.
they getting rid of EPA, CPA, DPA, GPA. They get rid of every damn thing. So we still have a water crisis in this nation.
Yeah. Okay. So the price tag is nothing based on their ugly bill and all the stuff. It's nothing. Go fix it. Why
But
won't they fix it?
he's going to get
It-
rid of EPA.
oh, I know.
Yeah, I mean, we have no checks and balances. Climate justice out the window. Okay, it's a
Mm.
wrap. So that's why I said it's good news. It might not be great, but it's good news because at least Flint got some new pipes. They got some new pipes.
Mm.
Okay.
Wow. Wow. And as Dr. Joni says, we know that lead causes brain damage and kills children and adults.
All right. All right. So let's move on over another state to Chicago, where former workers and attorneys, as well as advocates, gathered to announce in Chicago a class action lawsuit against Walmart for firing Black workers with criminal records. Now, they say some of those fired worked for a subcontractor for years, but were let go when Walmart took over the contracts. So Walmart did issue a statement saying, "We don't tolerate discrimination of any kind, and we will respond appropriately to the court."
Mm. Okay. Wow. We'll see.
Yeah, but that does, but that's one of the things that happens, when you have a criminal record. Once you're released back into society, it's still like you're in a sense of prison because
Right.
sometimes you don't have the right to vote. It denies you from getting a job. And so when we talk about criminal justice reform, this is part of it. If you let somebody go, but you don't make it fair for them, you don't provide equity and equality for them to have a second chance at life, what are the odds of them going back into the pattern of crime that they were into? Because they have no recourse to do better. But under a Trump administration, it's going to be
Mm.
hard to fix those and have criminal justice reform.
Exactly. Wow. Wow.
And that's it for today, Stacy.
That's a lot. He said, that's it. That's a lot. As if we didn't do anything. Wow. Folks, let's get some Black history in here. Gosh, a Black fact on this date. Back in 1775, Prince Hall founded Africa Lodge Number 1. It was the first Black lodge of Freemasons in the United States. That's what happened on this date in 1775. So some history, even as the oppression was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
There's history was being made.
Right. And we're still making history. But I have one for you too. It happened on this day in 1950. The first African American woman had her own TV show. Her name was Hazel. It was called The Hazel Scott Show. It premiered on the Dumont Television Network, making the Trinidadian born Hazel Scott the first African American woman to have her own television show.
Look at that. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. And folks are saying they love the pictures, Greer. Our black-owned newspaper of the day, the Weekly Challenger. We're going to stay in Florida. The Weekly Challenger is our black-owned newspaper of the day. And for more than 50 years, the Challenger newspaper has been the most comprehensive source for gathering, organizing, and presenting news and information to the African-American communities of Tampa Bay. You know, that Tampa Bay is sort of like, in some ways, like the Twin Cities out in Minnesota, because you got Tampa
Mhm.
St. Pete there. But in
Mhm.
addition to in-depth research and thorough reporting of local events, the Weekly Challenger newspaper also offers complete coverage of news from state, national, and even international. So our black-owned newspaper today is the Weekly Challenger. Go check them out. Check out their website. And if you're in the Tampa St. Pete area, pick up a copy of the Weekly Challenger.
Right, for sure. And Florida is definitely a state that we need to be paying attention to because of the hurricanes and because of alligator Alcatraz. So our black newspapers in those towns and cities are going to be very important, where you can get what's happening from the black perspective in Florida. And of course, we take it national. You can head over to BlackPressUSA.com for your latest headlines. Now, Stacy, I have a question. Should we
Yes.
be patriotic since it's 4th of July, or should we resist patriotism? Or
I am,
are we into, I would like to know too from the chat. Should we be patriotic?
I
Is this
am
our
not.
country too?
Listen.
Should we put a flag out?
Uh,
I'm torn.
oh gosh. Well, you know
Either
your
way,
girl,
go ahead.
your girl is always decked out in red, white, and blue. It
Oh,
seems Beyonce when
oh
she's
yeah,
on her
she
show.
actually, I think that's what she is in Washington, D.C. tomorrow, the 4th of July. Okay. She say,
Mm.
this land is your land, this land is my land. Okay. Dr. Stephanie Humphrey Channel said personal choice.
Yeah.
Michelle Edison said it's the 4th of the lie. I like that. I want that t-shirt. MB says America is for everybody, and Dr. Joni says she's torn.
I see. She says she feels disgusted by our leadership, but have to believe this country is worth fighting for.
I'm with Dr. Joni though. I'm torn too, but I think Beyonce reminds us. You say hey, you talk about Michael Jackson, I talk about Beyonce. Okay, you got yours, I got mine. But
Well,
I mean,
you talk so good about her. I don't always talk so good about Michael.
but don't let nobody else say nothing about him.
Oh no, you can say whatever you want about him.
No, but I
It's true.
think that I love the fact that she is in Washington, D.C., owning America for us black folks. So yeah, but have a great weekend, Stacy. I hope you have lots of barbecue and enjoy your family. And we'll be back on Monday.
I have two retirements in my family. One is Elon Musk, Donald Trump inspired retirement. My sister worked for the government; she had to go. And another one is my brother is retiring from Johns Hopkins Hospital, so we're gonna be having a great weekend to celebrate their
Ooh,
retirement. So that's
cool.
what
All right.
That's the plan. That is the plan. So there
Sounds
you go.
like fun.
Yep, there you go. So y'all do whatever y'all do it safe.
Right.
And don't let this orange man 45, 47 steal all your joy. We'll be back. We'll make sure that we'll have something to be proud of when we come back Monday. How about that?
Right.
All right. We'll see you then.